without any further ado, it's time for us to come full circle into this new posthumous Mac Miller release.
Circles.
Mac Miller, or I don't know, would you consider him a legend at this point? Do you think he...
Yeah, but only because he died.
Is it a thing where it's like... I don't know, because like, I think in some aspects he is, but like...
I don't know, you used to just make like... Mac Miller, American rapper, used to make like college rap, like a lot of like college campuses were just bumping his music all over the place. And then at some point he became like a huge voice in like more jazz rap and abstract rap. I would say specifically around like Divine Feminine time back in 2016. And then last year releasing...
2 years ago.
Or 2 years ago. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's 2020 now. 2 years ago, releasing Swimming, which was more of a down-to-earth album that dealt with, like, mental illness and
more just feeling like you're just
alone, drowning.
Yeah. I think it had a cheesy character, but that kind of worked in his favor. I think there were some elements that just kind of fell flat. Some of the songs felt too long. They didn't progress as well as I wanted it to. Some of the ideas didn't seem as focused as can be, but I think the character of Mac, what he presented, not through his lyricism, was consistent and consistently enjoyable.
Yeah.
He tragically passed, I think, a few months later after tragically ODing, and this album was left as... essentially his family brought together Jon Brion, who did production with Mac and was working on this album while he was still alive. And apparently, like, from what I heard during an interview I think he did with Zane Lowe, he finished like 9 out of the 12 tracks, and the ones that he didn't have, that Mac didn't show him yet, he finished, or at least they're near completion. And Jon Brion, mostly known for teaming up, he's known for scores of like Eternal Sunshine, of The Spotless Mind, but more importantly, working with Kanye West on Late Registration. He's just a great producer all around, just insanely talented. And on this, the pairing works really well. And hearing about how Jon inspired Mac to more believe in himself was really nice. And get him to just like trust his own instincts was really interesting, because the influence of Jon Brion isn't just like him playing all the instruments. He tried to force Mac to do more himself, like on the track Once a Day, which I encourage you to hear the little bit snippet of the Zane Lowe interview, because it shows how much the relationship in a short time he had an effect on Jon, which was really nice. This album it was always meant to be a companion to Swimming, follow the same things, coming full circle in a sense, but also
swimming in circles.
Also the idea of life and death, the circle of life. And I think it is stronger lyrically. It's not the most groundbreaking, but I think the consistency in themes really works. I think this is probably Mac's most consistent project to date. I think Good AM and Faces are two of the projects that stand out at the top of his discography, and I think this tops them. I think he put out probably, with this, he was working on what was considered to be, is probably going to be considered his best project, and I think his most ambitious project to date, because it literally, one of the saddest things about Mac Miller's death was not just losing the individual, but losing the potential that was there. And like, because Swimming just set so many bricks that I felt like could have been stacked.
Yeah.
Instead, we just had all these bricks made and we didn't know what to do with them. But I really wanted some closure in that aspect, and I felt like I was never going to get. And even hearing tracks that were dropped after his death, like features he did for the Free Nationals and 88 Keys, cemented that he was going somewhere lyrically, very fluent in the ideas and the processes of the themes that he's touching on both this and Swimming.
Yeah.
So it felt like he was striving to become a better musician and lyricist in himself. And on this, I think we're getting a very lighthearted, somber, which is not only somber because of Mac's death, but I think this album, it has that like emptiness, and it's hollow, even amplified by his death. It's hollow on its own, but when you amplify the backstory and the tragicness to this album, makes it more heartbreaking. It's hollow, it's empty, but still warm. At points, I think you get a different shade of Mac. It's not just all this jazzier or soulful material. You get moments like which he kind of goes back to his like college rap days, or things that were more appealing to like mass pop audiences. Like it reminds me a bit of Party on Fifth Ave in a sense.
Really, I think like there's maybe only 2 or 3 tracks that I'd be like, that's a straight up rap track. The rest of these are like way more singing. You can like feel that. I feel like with that singing, you can almost like feel the pain as well. It's sometimes like hard to pick up on emotions when somebody is rapping, but he sings, I think, really well. Like some of his best vocals to date.
I think we described it as like not Cajun accent, because it's like he talks like he has a bunch of marbles in his mouth at times, and it works. Like it gives him this distinct sound palette, and it works. And I think he really amplifies that to like a point where it's emotionally breaking, which is really nice, and you can empathize with the voice and tone that he's predicting or producing. I think moments like Everybody, which is the cover of an Arthur Lee song, is truly just like the core of what this album is about circles of life and death, and how it's going to be fun while it lasts, but it's going to end at some point, and you're just going to have to accept that. And it's literally just a circle in it. Circles feels so somber, hollow, and just lightly building, like it's just the start of something. This is the perfect beginner to this record. Once a Day is a really interesting track once you know the story behind it and hear how it made Jon Brion feel emotionally and the recording process about it. I think you should do some research on your own and watch the interview you did with Zane Lone, because I don't think I can really emphasize what that track probably means, but on this album, before I knew the story, it feels pretty short. And some of these tracks don't feel like the fullest fledged out musical ideas, but they're still pretty solid in composition throughout everything else. I think if Max was alive, we would see a little bit more polish on some of these topics.
Oh, I definitely think so. Some of these tracks end like really abruptly, specifically like Once a Day ends really quick, and then I was like, oh, is that the last track?
Yeah.
It was really weird. And then I think like Blue World specifically, I love that track, but the choruses are obviously like reused over and over. Like he only recorded one chorus.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty obvious that happened. But yeah, I agree. Like if he were still alive, I think it's fair to say there would be like a lot more polish and probably like more emotion that went into this, a lot of re-recording. But from what we have here,
it's still pretty good.
It seems like Mac was like really close to finishing this. Honestly, like a lot of his verses are very fleshed out.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they're unfinished, and that like the family had to take too many liberties with deciding what this album was going to be about.
This is one of those posthumous albums in an age where we have like the releases of Little Peeps and XXXTentacion's music. This feels like, it doesn't feel like cash grab. It feels like, oh, this is finished, or it's like near finished. Hey, John, can you help us out? And go through his archives and see if there's anything that can complement like the remainder of this album.
Yeah.
But it's tastefully done. I think Mac would have wanted it almost this way. I think Good News is probably his most ambitious track in the sense of lyricism. I think this is where he really hones his skills, and he really portrays the emptiness he was feeling, and also a feeling of like distrust towards everyone else, and not feeling like he could relate to people in the sense that they only wanted the best out of him and they didn't want to have to deal with the worst, and they only wanted good news when it was available to them. They don't want Mac when he's at his worst. And it really amplified the tenderness that this record has.
Yeah, you can really feel like the struggle that he was going through at the time of this recording. Like some tracks there's one track specifically, I think it might be I Can See, where he like specifically says like, here I am, I'm at the end. Like you can see me like struggling. And that's just really, it puts in a whole new light once somebody's gone. Like it's too late for them. It's too late to feel a certain way or check in with them or anything, because like they're gone, but you can feel the struggles. It makes me specifically feel like, how did we not see that?
Yeah.
How did anybody not see that coming when he was obviously like making music like this?
One thing I think this album does really well is it gives a sense of closure. Which I don't know. I think a lot of his fans needed that, and I feel like it really just if it needs to be a bookend the remainder of his career, I think it really does a successful job at doing that.
It's a stretch, but I almost compare this to David Bowie's Black Star.
In some ways, yeah.
And like specifically the track Lazarus, where he's like talking about...
Because like, here's the thing, it works almost too well as a closer, and that's the scary part about it.
Exactly.
Like Black Star, like
Black Star was eerily put together to where it would be a closer, but this is very haunting, I feel like. And it's a great closer. Swimming was kind of inconclusive, I felt like. But Circles almost makes it feel like, well, he was obviously struggling, but it ends like very peacefully. There's a very like peaceful vibe to this record.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because it paints Mac in a very positive light.
Yeah.
I think it was just a great career closer. Like, even if Mac was still alive and this was the last record that he put out, I'd be like, that's great.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that needs to be said.
Yeah. I think this really cements pretty much what he's standing for his entire career, and I think it's good. And yeah, it is like a Black Star because it's just so
it
eerily.
Works so well.
It's creepily eerily. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I really need to say. Give me my scores futile and meaningless. Right now, this is like an 8+.
Yeah, I'll give this an 8.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. And I was gonna say hear from more from Mac in the future, but
I still hope. I hope he comes to me 13 Mac Miller standing around my bed, standing guard around my bed.
Well, I hope Jon Brion gets. Eventually, we hear from him in some capacity because he pops up every once in a while on some studio album associated with hip hop or R&B in some fashion. So
yes.